Here we go, chapter 4. All right, in terms of market structure. Did we get this? Everybody got this in their notes? So we talked about fixed costs, variable costs, sunk costs, relevant costs, break-even volume, and trade margin. Okay, good job. So we're going to take this off. Let's talk about market structure and segmentation. We're getting there. We're getting there. Let's keep rolling. Yes, we could do it. Yes, we can. Caroline, we could do it. Travita, let's make this happen. We're going. We're going. Let's go places. That's what Toyota says, right? That's the slogan for their campaign. Let's go places. It used to be moving forward. Do you remember? That used to be the slogan for their campaign. Sometimes they would use it as a tagline with their logo. But what they didn't say was that you would move forward whether you wanted to or not. That was a problem, right? With the accelerator. So you get in your car and suddenly your car is going 90 miles per hour into your garage door. That was a problem. What was that?
What was Enron's slogan?
Yeah, that's a different issue. All right, so market structure. Let's take, for example, if we do this category hierarchy for the beverage industry. In the US. So let's look at the market structure for the beverage industry. So we have alcohol. So here are some of the segments in the beverage market. Alcohol, soda, milk, and orange juice, right? So in terms of the beverage industry, this is an example of the structure, the market structure. So this is how we could segment the beverage market in terms of opportunities. So these are different segments. When we create this market structure, with this category hierarchy, right? When we create this market structure, this category hierarchy, and we place a number, that's known as market sizing. We're quantifying the size of the market. Targeting is when we're selecting particular segments to pursue. So let's say we're going to pursue this segment and this segment. That's an example of targeting. We're selecting. We're selecting segments. This is an example of quantifying. Segmentation is when we're dividing a market into submarkets. So alcohol. So this segment of the beverage industry is about 60% of the total beverage market in the United States in terms of retail dollars. And that includes beer, wine, spirits, and then there's different types of spirits like rum, vodka, tequila, whiskey, all things that you guys know nothing about, right? Right. All right, let's take another example. How about the coffee market? Coffee, that's what everybody wants right now. Forget about wings. You want coffee, right? All right, so what about the coffee market? So the U.S. coffee market, is $8 billion. Now, within the U.S. coffee market, we've identified these two key segments, institutional and retail. So institutional, what is that? So institutional is...
vending machines.
Well, so like institutional would be, this would be more consumer. Like retail, we think about buying coffee at grocery stores, and this is institutional would be at like hotels, restaurants. So this is $2 billion. Retail is $6 billion. Now within retail, there's different product forms. There's ground coffee, whole bean, and instant. And then, within this market, there's also decaffeinated coffee and caffeinated coffee. So, this is another example of a market structure. We use segmentation to divide a market. So when we talk about segmentation, you say, what is that? Coach, segmentation, I'm not sure. Segmentation is basically dividing a market into submarkets. And what's the benefit of segmentation? Why do we segment markets? What's one of the benefits of segmenting a market? Well, one of them, go ahead.
To identify opportunities for product development?
Yeah, you're going to identify opportunities for new products. Absolutely. So one of the ways that you're going to be able to do that is to leverage your critical thinking skills and divide the market into submarkets. Now, when we do that, and there's a number of ways that we could do that. In terms of the basis for segmentation is demographic, which is another way of saying socioeconomic. So in the book it uses the term socioeconomic, which is demographics. One way that we could segment the market is demographics. Like for what? What's an example of a demographic?
Gender, age.
Their age, gender, religion, education, right? So all of those are examples of ways that we could segment a market. Demographic, geographic, demographic, geographic, psychographic. These are different ways. We're talking about the basis for segmentation. What are the different ways we could segment the market? Psychographic, which is lifestyles, which could include what? Hobbies, right, is an example of a lifestyle.
Single thing.
And then behavioral. So again, we're talking about different ways we could segment the market. So in terms of behavioral segmentation, what we're talking about could be the usage rate. So we want to find out what percentage are, in terms of the consumption rate, we're going to want to find out what percentage of our customers, or in the entire category, are consuming at a low level, moderate, and high. This is very important. So when we have data and we do a cluster analysis and identify these segments in terms of the usage rate, their level of consumption, so it's low, moderate, or heavy consumption, or no consumption, which would be a non-user. When we do our research, we want to get input from the non-users as well. We want to find out, why don't you drink orange juice? So we identify those that are consuming at a low level. That's going to inform our strategies. So it's not just interesting. Then we say we want to have things that are actionable. It's not just interesting that they consume at a low level. Our challenge now as marketers is, what are we going to do to increase their consumption? That's our challenge. How do we increase their consumption rate? It's not just, oh wow, that's 20% of our customers only drink orange juice once a month. Once a month. We need to get them to drink 3 times a day. How are we going to make that happen? And then, of course, those that don't drink orange juice. Remember, I've always told you that when we do research, sometimes we get excited about the fact that we have a high level of brand awareness. But then we don't ask enough questions to find out that although we have a high level of brand awareness, that the purchase intent could be very low. So we have to make sure that we ask questions about purchase intent as well. Because even though we could have a high level of awareness, like the Coke brand could have a high level of awareness, it doesn't mean that the purchase intent is going to be high. Maybe out of our sample, we find that 20% of the people don't drink soda. Oh, we were so excited our brand awareness was 98%. But then we find out 20% of the people don't drink soda. Well, maybe 50% don't drink soda. And so then we need to craft our strategy around those facts so that we could convert potentially the non-users, or what sometimes we refer to as the non-adopters. In terms of benefit sort, an example could be in the toothpaste category. So what are some of the benefits? Why do people use toothpaste? Think about the benefit. What is the benefit of using toothpaste? Whitening, fights plaque, fights tartar, fresh breath, fights cavities. Those are all. Now, when we segment the market, that's just interesting, right? We find out that there's segments in the market, there's consumers, in this particular case, who want toothpaste that's going to whiten their teeth. And we find out that there's a segment of consumers who want toothpaste that's going to fight plaque, and those that will fight tartar. and those that will provide fresh breath. That's interesting. But it's what we do with that information that's powerful. So what would we do with that information? Introduce a new product. Introduce a product that now has a feature that, when used, will whiten your teeth, will fight plaque, will fight tartar. So it can't just be interesting. It's got to be something that's actionable. We don't just do segmentation because it's intriguing. It's got to be something that is going to result in us achieving our goals, increasing our market share, increasing our sales. We said, what, we're going to increase our sales by $20 million, improve our profitability by $5 million. So those are some bases that we could use to segment the market. What is the criteria? So how do we know what criteria we should use when forming segments? So what would be one of them? One of them is what? Is large, which the book says is substantial. Is that right?
Yeah.
So large. The segment should be large. When we decide, when we're looking at potential segments, we want the segment to be large. We want it to be reachable. So it should be accessible. The segment has got to be accessible. When we say reachable, that means, are we going to be able to reach them with our marketing communications? So are they accessible? That's what that means. Are they going to be exposed to our TV commercials, to our print ads, to our radio spots, to our billboards? Are they reachable? And then Shanae said, well, really before large, really a segment should be measurable. And if it's measurable, then after we measure it, we want it to be large. So it's got to be measurable. It's got to be a segment that we could measure, which is what? That market sizing. We have to be able to quantify the size of the market. And then Elena said, another criteria is?
Be able to distinguish the market.
So it has to be differentiable. What does that mean? That within the segment, the needs and wants of the consumer have got to be homogeneous, which means the same. The needs and wants of the consumers in any given segment should be the same. Now, amongst the segments, the needs and wants are going to be different. So what would be an example? Well, we said one segment wants teeth whitening. All right, so their needs and wants are homogeneous. They're the same. But then we have another segment that we identified that wants fresh breath. That's a different segment. That segment also has similar needs and wants. And importantly, they respond to the marketing mix in the same way. So they respond to the 4 Ps in the same way. That means that, for example, they'll purchase the product at a given price. Or maybe they shop. Ideally, they shop at similar channels. Like, for example, what would be an example of a channel of distribution? We'll talk about that in a minute. Mass merchants, department stores, grocery stores, drug stores. Those are different channels of distribution. So when we say place, one of the 4 Ps, place, which means distribution, those would be examples.